It is an honor to meet you. I'm a huge fan. You know this.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to meet you, Dr. Morissa.
So you performed with Breakbeat Lou like 5 years ago. And I would love to have some kind of fun fact about you, maybe how you met, what you played together.
Okay, so yeah, I met Breakbeat Lou, the legendary Breakbeat Lou in Nashville, Tennessee. He was at a club called the Five Spot. And basically, Funky Good Time is all the DJs, they played 7 inches. It's an all vinyl party, and they played music from the James Brown era. So anything from that era, Breakbeat Lou was the guest DJ. They'd have a funky good time. And by me being a resident drummer, because I actually brought that drumming with the DJ thing to Nashville, something that I did in New York, also in the Pennsylvania area when I lived there. And yeah, I was looking to bring that thing to Nashville because I was trying to find what would be my niche. So they actually brought me in. They like the idea of this drummer with the DJ. So I became the residency. So this event would happen once a month. Every first Saturday, Breakbeat Lou was the guest DJ. We met and we just hit it off. And he was playing records that I was familiar with. And we just realized that, I have, roots living in New York, and we just hit it off. And
You recorded Two Would Try in Michigan, and that's where you were born, right?
yes, yes.
So I would love to say something about your Michigan roots.
Yeah. Growing up in mid-Michigan, Two Would Try, that track was recorded with Black Milk, one of my favorite artists that I worked with in my career. And that's actually how I met Jack White. It was during a Christmas break holiday, when you go visit your family, you know what I'm saying? So I went back home, and I remember, when I go up north, I just reach out to see who's around. And I remember letting Black Milk know that I was in town, and he just so happened to be working on new sketches for his record. The Police records inspired what's the name of that? True Lies. Yeah. True Lies, yeah. So, but the other track, Two Would Try, featured Dwele, which is an amazing artist, a soul singer from Detroit, Michigan. He's a staple in the area. So it was just cool. It was just cool working with Black Milk again. I remember we would just Black would play beats on his sampling device. And like I would normally do, like at a sound check, I just started like playing some grooves, and he was like, "Oh, I like that," and he ended up using it. So yeah, it was just cool recording that back, in Michigan, kind of like in kind of home turf area. And what I'm saying, just being back in mid-Michigan, it was just cool. It was cool doing that. As a teenager, I realized that I wanted to be a genre-bending drummer, not just known as a church drummer, but I came up super strict Pentecostal, where anything outside of gospel was secular, and we were told not to listen to it. But I snuck, obviously. I remember seeing the Roots. So that was my first time seeing like a live band in the hip hop format. So Questlove was definitely an influence, of one of my favorites. Just seeing a person play that computerized stuff on drum kit, I was like, oh wow, it's so killing. As far as music, I love D'Angelo, I love Beyonce, I love all the soul, like this the neo soul stuff that came out at the time was cool. Gospel roots, Andre Krauss, Rand Sallin, and then all of the 90s stuff. You talking Gangstar, Pete Rock and CL Smooth, which I actually got to work with. Slum Village, Jay Dilla, the Wu-Tang Clan, Tribe Called Quest. All those different, vibes are a part of my DNA. And like I say, my style is an evolution of all of the people that inspired me. I just a tidbit from that, tidbit from rock, hip hop. And I just I want to keep those legacies alive, like the jazz, because they were saying jazz was dying off, but I want to keep that vibe alive. You know what I'm saying? With the way that I hold the sticks with the traditional grip, and the Kangos is hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Like my whole style is definitely all of the different styles and genres that that I admire.
The Lazaretto performance on SNL, truly like one of the most incredible performances ever. Do you have any favorite memories from that experience?
That's a good question. Yeah, as a teenager, I would hear my parents and people saying, it'd be great for you to have that moment where you get like a big break. And I've had a lot of breaks in my career, like mini breaks, but that was like that moment that I was being told as a kid that, it was like everybody would get that one moment that's going to make an impact. And that was definitely one of the biggest moments. My heroes that I looked up to, and they was like they all had saw the performance. So it was just crazy. It was all last minute because the original artist got kicked off because he wasn't following COVID protocol, and it was crazy. We had to like rehearse really really quick, and then we had to go get tests, COVID tests. So there was all these different layers. If somebody would have tested positive, that would have maybe forfeited the opportunity. But I just remember when we went to rehearse, we just kind of like made it all up at the last minute. Like this, like all that stuff that y'all see on TV, those are last minute decisions that happen. And the crazy thing was when you're live on TV, anything can happen to go wrong. Before we went on stage, Jack was like, "Yeah, let's just go out there like we just rehearsing, like we just jamming." It just all came together. I feel like the universe and the creator was with us because everything it was like watching a movie like happen, and it was surreal. But yeah, it was just cool. One of my favorite moments was Bill Burr. Um, After the show, he talked about he made a joke about my drums because of the way that it was set up, because they set up like opposite way with the tilts. Cool joke. He said it looks like Daru's drum kit is about to fly off an airplane. I forgot the joke, but it was just cool for him, somebody at that status, and he's a drummer as well, for him to give me a shout out on his show. Like that was just so cool. I'm always grateful and honored when anybody recognizes the drummer, because the drummer is always getting the low, for the most part, get the low end of the stick. They put us in the back, you know what I'm saying? We can't, but Jack puts me out in the front, which I'm appreciative. But that was one of the cool moments, just getting that love from the SNL crew. They were all like, we got a standing ovation. It was such a cool experience. Yes.
That's amazing. That is so cool.
I appreciate Jack because he's about detail and aesthetic. Like when you see those videos, like the way that they, all of the colors, and that's how he is. And I'm the same way too, but all the details, he just want to make sure everything is at a certain level. It's just cool. It's always a blessing work with him, because I feel like Jack hired me because he wanted me to bring in my specialty, versus he's a drummer, so he already knows what he wants. You know what I'm saying? But he didn't want me to come and do what Meg was already doing. He wanted me to come bring my flavor. So it was just cool when we get in these writing sessions, and we're all pretty much he's allowing us to have input, which is great because he don't have to do that. He's an amazing songwriter. So him allowing me to express myself and tune and just do things into my liking, because he's a drummer. Like I said, he already know the sound that he want, but I'm just thankful that he allows me to be able to come bring my vibe and flavor.
That is absolutely
Cool.
awesome. And how old were you? You talked about drumming in the church. How old were you when you first started drumming, or when you learned to drum originally?
I started at 4. Like I went to a church where we had service every night, and I had another cousin that started at the same time. I think he was a year younger than me, but he had this little kid, they had the toy kid drum sets. I think it was like a CB700. So he had that kit. And the church that I went to, they had a main drum kit on the right side of of the church, and then he would set up his drums on the other side. So it was like a stereo. But the funny thing was, we were playing at the same time, and we didn't know what we was doing. We were just trying to imitate what the main drummer was playing. So that was cool. And then later on, a few years later, when I started, playing for real, getting to the big kit from the small junior kit, I was so short they had to use like the school desk, for me to sit on, because my legs, I wasn't tall enough to reach the well, when I would try to play on the regular stool, I would have to stand up because it was just so tall. Um, but yeah, that was my beginnings, and I grew up with my instrument. Starting at that time and continuing when it grew up with me, and I'm grateful because it kept me out of a lot of trouble. Like at that time, my friends, everybody was getting off into different things, and so I'm glad I had that outlet. Yep.
That is awesome. And how do you stay creative, or how do you, at this point, how do you keep inspired to keep doing what you do?
That's a good question. So I, I'm very thankful for the parents that I had because they always invested in me. I have two siblings. I have a brother and a sister, and if they saw that we took an interest in a certain thing, karate, whatever it is, drawing, they invested. They bought us the tools that we needed, and um, I'm not saying we were rich. We definitely were not, but they still find a way. You know, my dad worked for the shop, so they found a way to get what we needed. But I remember I became a fan of Legos, and I think my parents they saw something in me that I had this creative mind, so they would get these Legos for me, and instead of building what was on a box, I would try to look for ways to build things that was not, because when you buy those Lego sets, they have specific parts for the things. Like if you're going to build a castle, they have the parts just to build that castle. I was like, I don't want to just build a castle. I want to make my own. So I would take the parts and look for. So that was a especially that they feel like I had like a gift, and then also had a good memory. Like I could hear something one time and play it. You know what I'm saying? So I had this reputation of having this photographic memory until I started learning about jazz, because jazz had a lot more notes. It wasn't as easy as the gospel stuff, but those were the things, that I feel like that helped my creativity. Like get this. Okay, I can go with inside and not, change the rules and not do. So I think that helped me, or gave me the mindset of being able to be creative. And then I started going to studios as a young kid, learning how to produce, like seeing all the studio equipment, and my mentors, they were like, this is how you work this machine. So that allowed me to, to be creative. So I always want to stay creative. Like I think that's what keep us evolving, keep us going. Because once we get to a place where we know everything, then I don't feel like we can grow. We just get kind of stagnant. So I definitely want to stay creative.
So you mentioned recording in a dojo basement. Are there any other out of the ordinary locations that you recorded or performed at?
So the dojo was special because that was Dame Dash. I don't know if you know who Dame Dash is, but Dame Dash discovered Jay-Z. Dame Dash was Jay-Z's manager for years, and he also, was a part of Rockefeller with Kanye West. Like that was his thing. Kanye, Benny Siegel, that whole movement. That was Dame Dash. He had an art gallery in Soho, and in the basement, they called it the dojo because it looked like it looked like a Japan. You know how the dojo was, Japan's term. So yeah, it looked like a dojo, and that's what they call it. And in the basement, they had the recording studio. Dame, he had this facilities, art gallery, Ski Beats was his producer. They had in the basement, and then they hired me to come in as a drummer. And they put a band together, and the name of the band was called Ski Beats and the Senseis. So we recorded Senseis. It was myself, Brady Watt, and John Cave. Rest in peace. We lost John Cave some years ago. But yeah, we were part of that. And it was so dope because you never know who was going to come to the dojo. I'm talking Erica Badu would come in, Mos Def would come in, um, all the celebrities, because it was like this hidden gem in Manhattan, Soho. And they would come perform in this basement. The basement only could fit 100 people in there. They called it under 100. So like, Dame comes from an era where Jay-Z, they used to like, popping champagne, people being all around. So it was like this community of a lot of influencers and people like the scene. It was dope. Like to be at the dojo at that time, it was just like Rockefeller all again. But the next generation was just so cool being in an environment because we were like the next big thing at the time. Um, another cool performance I remember us doing. We had a performance at Jackpot. We would play B shows, which would be like a pop-up show in a random location. And he used to do that with the Stripes, but he started doing it with for the solo project. So we randomly played at a freaking gas station, an old gas station.
Wow.
And people were outside, and it was just like all you see was tires, cars and pumps,
Mhm.
and we were outside. It was crazy. crazy. We played, and then he did a couple other beat shows. One he did was at a laundromat, and then we did it at a laundromat, and then we did another one with the guys. We did one at a record store, and basically people will only get the information through Twitter, like only a half an hour. So they would announce it on Twitter, and then people had to rush down, and it only fit a small capacity. You know what I'm saying? So if you didn't make it in time, you would miss out, or people would just be outside. So those were a few cool experiences.
Amazing. A fun fact about yourself, anything that folks might not know about you.
People know this. I love cookies. I
Nice.
have sweet tooth cookies. I like to shop. I like fashion.
Well, this is awesome. Thank you so much. You are one of my biggest musical heroes. I appreciate you taking the time to to talk.
Have a
Awesome.
good Sunday.
You too.
All right.